My name is Caroline Bishop. I'm 32, and I never expected to be cut off from my own family after covering their debts, tuition, and mortgage for nearly a decade. If you've ever felt overlooked or betrayed by your own family, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Like this video and subscribe for more stories like this. I wasn't always the invisible daughter. I was once their golden ticket, the one who made it out, who got the scholarships, the six-figure job, the downtown apartment with windows that wrapped around like I'd stepped into another life. My parents used to brag about me to their friends. She's in finance, they'd beam. AVP by 29. But when my brother Matthew lost his job for the third time and my parents started falling behind on their mortgage, I stepped in like I always had. I paid the arrears without being asked. I covered the last year of Matthew's MBA when his scholarship ran out. I refinanced my own condo so my parents could tide over after Dad's bad investment tanked. And when I finally slowed down long enough to look up, I realized something terrifying. They'd been helping themselves to more than I'd given. It started with a credit alert from a bank I'd never used. At first, I thought it was a phishing email. Then I saw the hard inquiry tied to my Social Security number. A $48,000 small business loan, approved under my name. I drove straight to my parents' house. My mother greeted me at the door with a nervous smile, her sweater sleeves pulled over her wrists like she used to do when she'd gotten caught lying as a kid. "I thought you'd understand," she said, like that made it okay. Dad wouldn't even look at me. They'd used my identity, my credit, my name, to bankroll a failing furniture store Matthew had just purchased, against my advice. It was just sitting there. My father said, "You don't even need it." Those words burned more than I expected. Like I didn't deserve the life I'd built. Like my success was some family trust fund they could dip into whenever their plans fell through. I asked them quietly why they hadn't told me. My mother's voice sharpened. "Because you'd say no, and we couldn't let you do that to your brother." The betrayal was clean, intentional, coordinated, and worst of all, justified in their minds. When I left that night, I said nothing. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. But I already knew what I was going to do. That night, I made a list of 4 things they'd never see coming. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of rage, but because something inside me had gone cold. A kind of emotional shutdown that only comes when betrayal doesn't surprise you. It confirms everything you feared. This wasn't the first time they'd used me, just the first time they got caught. When I was 10, Matthew broke our neighbor's window with a baseball. I confessed, thinking I was helping him. They grounded me. He got ice cream. When I got accepted into a gifted math program in middle school, my parents said the tuition was too much. That same month, they enrolled Matthew in travel soccer, gear, fees, hotels, everything. At my high school graduation, I looked out into the crowd and saw one folding chair with our last name on it. It was empty. They were at Matthew's college tour. Mom told me it was an honest scheduling mistake, but somehow they never missed his milestones. The thing is, I kept forgiving them, telling myself they were overwhelmed, that maybe I was just more independent, that maybe love looked different in our family. By the time I was 23, I was working 60-hour weeks, sending money home every month. Dad's surgery, Matthew's tuition, Mom's credit card debt. They always framed it as, just until we catch up, but catching up never came, and neither did thanks, only more asks. When I hesitated, they'd weaponize guilt. "You're the one who made it, Caroline. Don't be selfish. Your brother's trying. He just needs support." I didn't realize I'd become the family's silent income stream, a walking emergency fund, until they took out a loan in my name, and still didn't apologize. That's when I started step 1. I ordered my full credit report, 3 agencies locked down. Step 2, I closed every joint account, removed all shared logins, and updated every password I'd once shared in passing. Step 3, I hired a lawyer, not to sue, but to protect. He helped me write a cease and desist and drafted paperwork blocking any financial actions involving my identity. Step 4, I disappeared. Quietly. I moved my assets into a new holding company under a different name, shifted my investments, changed addresses. It took 6 weeks. By the time they realized I'd gone silent, I was gone in every way that mattered. No more deposits, no more help, just silence. They called once, then stopped. I assumed they were licking their wounds until I got the email. The email came from a generic business address. Subject line, urgent investment opportunity, Bishop Furniture Revival. My last name, Matthew's Big Gamble. I clicked the attachment, and there it was. A professionally designed pitch deck with typos in the margins and grandiose claims about modernizing legacy craftsmanship. They were seeking private investors. One slide had a bar graph predicting 300% ROI in 12 months. Another showed a smiling photo of Matthew in a flannel shirt, arms crossed like a startup CEO. I scrolled until I hit the investors we're targeting slide. They'd listed contacts, friends of the family, old colleagues of my dad's, even an outreach note for me, using my old email address. That's when I laughed, not out of humor, but that low, sharp kind of laugh that comes when irony cuts too deep. They'd burned the bridge and were now trying to rebuild it using my wood. I debated ignoring it. Then curiosity won. So I reached out to a contact I knew they'd approach, Lena, a quiet investor I'd worked with on a tech incubator deal. "Let me guess," she said. "You're warning me off Bishop Furniture?" I nodded. "They listed me as a reference," she chuckled. "They're gutsy. Bad numbers. Overvalued assets. No liquidity. But you know that." I did. What she didn't know was the rest of it. The theft, the history, the betrayal that ran deeper than the balance sheet. Still, I said nothing. Not yet. A week later, I received a call from an unknown number. "Caroline," Matthew said, breathless. "I didn't know they used your name. I swear. He only ever called when he needed something." "I've been trying to reach you," he continued. "We're pitching investors, and I thought maybe you'd want in? You always said I had potential." I let the silence stretch. He filled it with more desperation. "I know we made mistakes, okay? But you know business. You see the opportunity here." It wasn't just business. It never was. It was the assumption that I'd forget the past, that I'd overlook what they took, that I'd still rescue them. "I'm not interested," I said. He laughed, but it cracked halfway through. "Wow, so that's it." I paused. "No, Matthew, that's finally it." I hung up and blocked the number. It was the first time I'd said no, and meant it. That moment was my break. No more explanations, no more rescues, and yet something kept nagging me. I didn't want revenge. But I did want a mirror. I wanted them to see what it felt like, to be on the outside, needing grace, and receiving only silence. So when I got a message from Lena 3 days later saying someone anonymous had expressed interest in the pitch, I decided to make one final move. The anonymous investor was me, but not as Caroline Bishop, as Everfield Capital, a holding company I quietly built over 2 years of angel investing. I had used it to fund tech upstarts, niche design firms, and real estate flips. My name was nowhere on its website, my fingerprints scrubbed from its press. I reached out through Lena. Just a vague message. "A representative from Everfield is curious. We'd like to hear the founder's vision firsthand." They bit. A meeting was scheduled at a co-working space downtown. I arrived 10 minutes early, watching from the other side of the glass wall. Matthew was pacing, wearing a borrowed blazer and a fake confidence that didn't quite fit. Mom and Dad came too, oddly dressed up, Dad holding a leather binder like it was the 90s again. I waited until the clock struck the hour. Then I walked in, no fanfare, just me, a laptop, and silence. Matthew's face froze. Mom blinked twice, then put on a smile I hadn't seen since childhood. "Caroline?" I sat down, calm, unshaken. "I represent Everfield," I said plainly. "You wanted an investor." Dad frowned. "This is a joke." "No," I replied, opening my laptop. "It's due diligence." Matthew was sweating now. "But why would you even be here?" Because I wanted to hear the pitch. I let them talk. Watched them stumble through projections they didn't understand. Heard Dad insist they could pivot if things didn't go well. Mom kept glancing at me like she could emotionally will me back into the daughter role. Finally, I closed the laptop and said the only thing I needed to. You used my name without permission. You stole my identity, then came back for more. Matthew opened his mouth. I raised a hand. Here's what's going to happen, I said, voice steady. I'm not pressing charges, but Everfield won't be investing. And I'll be sharing your name with every networked investor in our circle. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were notarized affidavits, proof of the loan fraud, screenshots, receipts, and a letter from my attorney confirming I was declining legal pursuit, but not confidentiality waivers. If I ever see my name used again, I said, that letter changes. Silence. Thick. Unbearable. Then my father whispered, "You'd ruin us." I leaned back. "No," I said. "You did that yourselves." I stood, walked out, and never looked back. They lost funding within weeks. Lena pulled her name from their deck. The rescue pitch died quietly, unfunded, unread. They'd gone to the one person they thought they could always rely on, and she showed them exactly how much she'd grown. After that meeting, I expected some backlash. A guilt-ridden phone call, a half-baked apology. But there was nothing, just silence. And honestly, that was louder than any apology would have been. I returned to my work. My Everfield portfolio expanded. Clean energy startups, artisan manufacturing, real estate tech. I funded ideas that reminded me of what I'd once wanted my family to be. Honest, hopeful, full of grit. But something strange happened about 2 months later. Lena forwarded me an article. It was buried in the local business section. Small family-owned furniture venture closes doors after funding collapse. It didn't mention names. But I knew they'd shut it down. The lease had defaulted, vendors had gone unpaid, and Matthew had moved back in with our parents. Again. Part of me wanted to gloat. But I didn't. Instead, I packed a care box for myself. A small ritual I started that year. Inside, a single printed photo of my old condo's deed. Framed. A folded check I once wrote to cover their back taxes. Uncashed, returned by my lawyer. And a copy of the cease and desist letter. Not as trophies, but as proof. That I could set boundaries. That I wasn't the weak one for walking away. That sometimes the only way to win is to stop playing the role they assigned you. A few weeks later, I got a message from my mother. Just one line. "I hope you're proud of what you did." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. She hadn't asked how I was. She hadn't acknowledged the theft, the betrayal, the years of leaning on me like a crutch. Her words weren't about regret. They were about shame. Hers, not mine. I saved the message in a folder I titled "Proof I'm Done." The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't always leave you angry. Sometimes it leaves you empty, not because you lost something, but because you realize they never saw you clearly to begin with. I spent the next few months building something that had nothing to do with them. I bought a modest lake house 2 hours outside the city, not to escape, but to reset. I started hosting small retreats for women in finance who'd been burned out, boxed in, or broken by toxic environments, whether at work or in their own families. We didn't talk about revenge. We talked about recovery, about reclaiming our stories. It was slow at first, 5 women, then 10. Now, we have a waiting list. One night, during a fireside Q&A, someone asked me, "How did you get the strength to walk away from your family?" The question caught me off guard, not because I didn't know the answer, but because it had taken me so long to accept it. I looked at the flames, then at her, and I told the truth. I stopped believing that I had to earn love by bleeding for it. There was silence, then a few tears, not just mine. That night, I wrote a letter I never sent, to my younger self. You don't have to fix what they keep breaking. You're allowed to outgrow people, even if they share your name, especially if they only show up when they need something. It was the closure I never got from them, but it was more powerful because it came from me. One morning, while cleaning out some old files, I found a spreadsheet. It listed every wire transfer, loan, or debt I had covered for my parents and Matthew. It totaled just over $317,000. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just highlighted the cells, right-clicked, and deleted the file because the debt was no longer mine to carry. Years passed. Quietly. My family never tried to contact me again. Not directly, at least. But through mutuals, I heard bits and pieces. Matthew tried another startup, something to do with sustainable lumber. It never got off the ground. Dad retired early, citing health stress. Mom still hosted book club once a month, where she told people I was doing something big with business, but always trailed off when asked specifics. In a way, they let me go. Because they thought I'd left empty-handed. But they were wrong. I didn't just leave. I rebuilt. Without their demands, without guilt, without the weight of proving my worth to people who never saw it. And then, last fall, something strange happened. I was at a pitch event, listening to founders share startup ideas. One young woman, nervous but sharp, pitched a plan for a modular furniture line built by underrepresented artisans. She reminded me of myself years ago, hungry, hopeful, undervalued. She didn't ask for sympathy. She asked for belief. I gave her both. 2 months later, we signed papers. Everfield became her lead investor. That furniture company? It's growing fast. Faster than Bishop Furniture ever dreamed of. But here's the twist. I named it something personal, something my family wouldn't recognize, but I would. Ash plus Vine. Ash for what was burned. Vine for what grew after. This wasn't revenge. It was a reminder that something good can grow in the aftermath of betrayal, that letting go can be an act of power, that boundaries are not bitterness, they are protection. And love? Iskeniachasa, Bucky Behens. Real love doesn't ask you to sacrifice yourself for other people's comfort. Real love shows up even when there's nothing to gain. I don't need my family's apology anymore because I no longer need their approval. And that is the richest return on investment I've ever had. Have you ever had to walk away from people you once called family? Drop your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your power. Send this to someone who needs to know they're not alone.